Well, at the age of 25, Leanne Taylor was paralyzed from the waist down in a bicycle accident. 6 years later, she would take home a bronze medal in para-triathlon at the 2024 Summer Games in Paris. It took a lot of grit and determination, but Leanne doesn't take full credit. Her new podcast, More Than Medals, highlights the para-athletes that inspired and encouraged her along the way.
I love hearing other people talk about spinal cord injury recovery and just disability in this way that's a little bit more positive and light.
I learned how to climb trees better than they did, and I learned how to throw rocks better than they did. And
for context, so that people don't just think you're a menace, can you tell us about your disability?
Sport unites people. It brings people together. It transcends language barriers. It transcends cultural differences.
Leanne Taylor joins us now in studio to talk more about her new podcast, More Than Medals, and it's a fantastic podcast. I was just listening to a bit of it earlier. Leanne, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So great to have you here. So you're an elite athlete, public speaker, mum-to-be.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You have a regular day job, so you thought, I'm not quite busy enough. Maybe I should do a podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if I thought that aspect of it through. It definitely meant being a little bit more busy, but I think these stories just so deserve to be told that we felt really compelled to share them.
So tell me about that. What was the motivation? Why did you want to do this?
When I was injured, I had access to a lot of different people in the community who came in to me when I was in the hospital even and talked to me about parasport and what my life might look like. And now I serve as a peer mentor for Spinal Cord Injury Manitoba. And when people ask me who are newly injured, have new spinal cord injuries, what was helpful to you? Like what really helped you to feel better and to manage a lot of the mental health aspects? It was getting involved in the disabled community. And so because I got so much from the disabled community in terms of support and friendship and learning a lot of physical things and mental things and all these strategies, I really wanted to bring that to other people. And so to kind of answer that question, like what helped me in my spinal cord injury recovery, it's these people who are interviewed on the podcast who also happen to be, many of them, very successful Paralympians and medalists and world champions.
So what will we hear on the podcast?
We go through each episode sharing a story of a different athlete, and all of the athletes were athletes that were in Paris 2024. And the point of calling the podcast More Than Medals is that the athletes have so much more to offer than just their success in sport, which is phenomenal in and of itself. But the athletes talk about some of the things that they went through to get there. So some of them are cancer survivors, some of them were born with their disabilities, some of them acquired their disabilities or had more severe disabilities as their disabilities became more severe as they grew up. And so hearing those stories and hearing how they adapted to so much change and so many difficult situations, I think really connects with anybody who is trying to overcome something challenging.
And are these stories that we just don't really hear about often enough?
I think they're the things that people don't say, or they're the questions that people are a little bit uncomfortable to ask of the disabled community. You very often get inspiring stories, but you don't get as often the funny aspects or these details of what a person's life is actually like. So Jess, one of the blind athletes, talks about what it's like growing up being visually impaired. And there was a clip of that in the beginning where she talks about learning how to climb trees and learning how to do all these things that you just don't think of as, a little blind kid is doing these things. But she talks about it with this humor and this openness, which I think is so beautiful and so unique.
And that lighter tone, how important is that, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's what's really exciting. I think when these stories are told, they're often told as tragedies. But if you meet these people, they do not think that they have tragic lives whatsoever. They think that they have had something difficult happen to them, and they're very honest about how difficult those times were. But now they are joyful and fun and just like everybody else. And so I think it's a good way to break down some of those barriers between the disabled and able-bodied community that don't really need to exist.
Now, you mentioned Jess. Who are some of the other athletes we meet on your podcast?
Yeah, we have Kendall Gretsch on there, whose episode is out now. She's one of my U.S. competitors, and also Austin Smeek, Greg Stewart. There is some of my competitors are going to be doing episodes, some of my teammates are going to be doing episodes in the future, which we're really excited to hear. So there's a good lineup. Howie Sanborn, who's also a veteran, who's an interesting person, and Haley Dans, all some incredible names from the parasport world who, if you don't know, it is pretty exciting to get to know.
So you're calling up your competitors and saying, hey, do you want to come on my podcast? What was their reaction?
Yeah, I was really nervous to ask anybody to be on it, honestly, because, this is one of those things, like, no one asked for this. I just decided that I really wanted to share these stories. But I've been really lucky in that the parasport world is incredibly supportive, and these people were genuinely the reason that I was able to qualify for Paris in a lot of different ways. And so calling them and saying, like, I did this because of you, and I would love for your stories to inspire the next generation of athletes in the way they inspired me. I think people felt that they wanted that so badly, wanted to inspire that next generation. And so no one said no, which I was absolutely amazed by. Yeah. I think that athletes are very honest and open in the podcast, which is what I love about it so much.
So you thought maybe people would say, I don't know if I want to get that personal.
Yeah, I think I wasn't sure if people would be as enthusiastic about it. Especially, I asked my Australian competitor, Lauren Parker, who has quite a big profile, and I just thought, she's probably used to getting paid for these things and doing them for bigger organizations. And so, yeah, I was surprised in that aspect. And then I think that people were so forthcoming in a lot of ways because they don't get asked these questions by someone from the disabled community very often. And when they do, I think I can sort of ask questions that get to the core of what we're trying to talk about, which is letting people know that disabled people are a lot more like everybody else than they think. And we have these backgrounds and these stories, but we're also just people, just athletes, just moms in some cases, just employees. So I think it has a nice perspective in that way.
I know years ago when I worked in private radio, I was program director of a radio station, and we were building a new radio station. So signing on a brand new thing, brand new station, new music, everything. And I was pregnant at the time. And all of the DJs and my staff said, it's like you're having another baby, because it was my baby. And I'm wondering what this, other baby for you has been like, launching and bringing to life.
Yeah, I was honestly so nervous to release it. And I think in the same way, anytime you do anything, which I think you can relate to, that you put so much heart and soul into, you feel so exposed. Yes. And I was nervous to do that. But what really kept me kind of pushing it forward is that these stories deserve to be told. And when I listen to the podcast, which is hard to listen to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
But I listen to some of the things that the athletes say, and I'm like, that is just so important. People need to hear this. And so even though I'm nervous for people to hear me, it's easy to encourage people to listen to something where I'm like, I got so much out of this. These people changed my life. And I think it will change other people's lives as well.
It's beautiful. It's a magical thing when the microphones disappear. And you're just talking with each other, you're listening and connecting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that is what I love about the podcast, and also made it really difficult for my friend James, who did the editing.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's good. If the editor has a tough job, that's a good thing. So what do you think a podcast like this would have meant to you when you were just starting off in sport?
When I was injured, when I was in the hospital, people came to me and kind of said, maybe you could go to the Paralympics. And it was kind of one of those things people say to sort of make you feel better. And I thought that was nice. Yeah. And so then I eventually kind of looked it up and was like, what sports are there? Is this really something I could do? And then I found some of the athletes who compete in my sport, which is para-triathlon. And I remember stalking them on Instagram and trying to figure out how are these girls doing this? What is this? How are wheelchair users doing triathlons? And so I think this podcast kind of is us as the athletes reaching out to those newly disabled people and trying to say, instead of having to stalk us on Instagram and feel weird about it, we're reaching out to them saying this is the life you can have, and it can be beautiful and fulfilling with or without a disability.
What do you hope people take away when they listen to your podcast?
I think that people will realize how powerful these athletes can be, and that disability is not this dirty word or this tragic thing. It's just one of the many things about us, one of the athletes has brown eyes and she also has a physical impairment. It's not the most exciting or interesting thing about her, but her story really is.
So now there's a career in broadcasting ahead of you, right?
That would be amazing.
I can hear it. I can hear you
Thanks.
now. Where can people hear your podcast?
It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to see what these athletes look like, you can watch it on YouTube as well. So basically, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find it.
We'll find you. That's great. Thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
That's Leanne Taylor, Paralympic bronze medalist in para-triathlon and the host of the new podcast, which you should check out. It's called More Than Medals.